What's good, everybody? Israel, and I come back to another video. So this video, I wanted to talk about the power of the mind and to highlight to you guys that your mind is the steering wheel of your life. Now, if we think of a steering wheel, right, it's the steering wheel of a vehicle. And with this steering wheel, you can determine the direction that you want to go, whether you want to take a left, whether you want to take a right, whether you want to go straight forward, or eventually do a U-turn and turn back around, right? You being on the steering wheel, right, you are controlling the car and can determine which direction the car goes, right? This is the same with your mind, because the mind is the most powerful tool that we were given. See, we are one of the few creatures on planet Earth that were given a mind so powerful, a mind that allows us to think critically, logically, right? We can ration, and we have access to an imagination. And the thing with the mind is that the mind serves as a loyal servant. The mind doesn't argue with you, it doesn't talk back. It merely accepts the instructions and the directions that you give it, and then from then on, it will work on that. So that is how powerful the mind is, and people truly undervalue and underestimate the power of the mind, because understanding your mind and its power can get you so far in life. Because if you understand that, then you will effectively, have your hands on the steering wheel and begin delivering, positive instructions for your mind so that it can help propel you forward and create the life that you want. See, the mind can serve as a double-edged sword, and it has for a lot of people out there, because, the mind we were given, we were given our minds for free at birth. It didn't cost us anything. And that's the amazing part, right? That we were given such a powerful tool, probably the most powerful tool in all of the planet, right? We were given that for free. It didn't cost us anything. But for some people, they undervalue it, underappreciate it, and it can serve as a double-edged sword in their life, because, like I said, it doesn't argue, it doesn't fight back. It simply accepts the commands and the instructions that you give it. Except some people, unfortunately, give it negative instructions. And so as a result, they begin experiencing negativity in their life. And the reality is, for a lot of people, their mind ends up being their own worst enemy, because they've allowed it to go unchecked, or they've allowed other people or other entities to hijack their mind. And I'm here to tell you that your mind is your steering wheel of your life. So if you having access to a steering wheel, you're driving it, right, you can control the direction that you want to go in life. But if other people are in control, or you're not in control of your mind, then you're effectively driving with your hands off the wheel, or the steering wheel is moving on its own because of another entity being in control. And you don't want to let that happen. You want to always be in control of your mind, because then it will determine where you want to go in your life. And let me give you an example, right? Your mind has, of course, beliefs in it. Now, beliefs are merely thoughts or ideas that you think over and over and over, because the thoughts you think over and over and over, and the ideas you think over and over and over, you think repeatedly, that is what creates your beliefs. See, people think the facts of your life, right, the situation, the set of circumstances, people think the facts of your life are what creates your beliefs, but it's the opposite. It's actually the beliefs that you hold are what ends up creating the facts of your life, right? And let's just say, and that's the thing, beliefs aren't all true, right? A lot of people, unfortunately, the reality is most people have a lot of incorrect, untrue beliefs, right? But they believe it because they've been told it so many times, they've been told that thing so many times, or they've been told, or it's like they've been around so many people that believe that idea, and so they've adopted that idea, right? And it ends up being a belief that's untrue, that doesn't serve them, right? And let me give you a simple example. Some people believe that the only way to earn money is by having a job, and yet we know that to be untrue, because there are plenty of business owners, there's plenty of investors, there's plenty of entrepreneurs, right? So there's unlimited ways for you to be able to earn an income. So we know that is an incorrect belief, and yet that is still a belief that many people hold, despite it being untrue. So That is just one of the many examples for why a belief can be untrue. Another example of it is that someone can believe that they're just not good enough. And it could be because they were told that by so many other people. It could be because they had that thought and that idea, and that, is what entered their mind and remained lingering there for whether it's weeks, months, years, decades, right? These are untrue, incorrect beliefs as well. They don't have any foundation or any basis. But yet, because we as humans, we have free will, we have the idea to think whatever thought or idea we want, we're also, it pretty much allow us to believe whatever we want to believe. And when we have silly beliefs like that, that's effectively us taking our hands off the steering wheel, because having a belief that you're not good enough is not serving you, right? In no way, shape, or form does that serve you, because you are here to have fun. You're here to enjoy your life. You are here for one existence. So you ideally want to make the most out of this so that it can end up being the best, most happy, most amazing life experience for you, right? And yet, a lot of people will allow their minds to make it difficult because they've decided to not be in control, right? This is what I mean. If you believe, let's say you have, like, you're someone that has a belief that you're just not good enough, right? That you're not capable. It's absolutely silly. But let's just say you've had that belief, right? If you believe that you're not good enough, you're not capable, that is going to determine the facts of your life, because then you're never actually going to pursue anything. You're never going to actually want to go after anything that you believe is, of great, of any large magnitude. You're probably not going to go after anything. You're probably going to just give something a try, but you're never going to put your best foot forward. You're probably never going to be dedicated or disciplined at that thing. You're probably not going to ever want to build, because you're just going to believe that you're not good enough. So in your mind, you think going after anything that might be important is a waste of time, because you won't be able to do it, because you believe you're not good enough. So why even try? Right? So you see right there how that belief ultimately will dictate the facts of your life, because if you believe you were good enough, then the things that you wanted to pursue, the things that you wanted to go after, you would go after it, because you believe you're good enough. You believe that you are going to win. You believe that you will succeed and that it is impossible for you to fail. You are not worried or thinking about whether it's going to work out or not. You're just going to go out and do it, because worrying is wasted energy, right? And worrying is what's going to make sure it doesn't happen, because rather than putting one foot in front of the other like you would do if you believe you were good enough and you were capable, when you worry, you effectively stop, right? Because you worried, you're anxious, you begin procrastinating, you don't think that you're capable, you start to question whether or not you're worthy, or right. So then you end up freezing in place, and then that worrying is what's going to make sure that it doesn't unfold or manifest, right? So that ends up being wasted time or wasted energy. Your beliefs are what creates the fact, and your beliefs are where they exist in your mind, right? See, because we have the ability to think whatever idea or think whatever thought we want, because we were given the ability to reason, to ration, to think logically, and we have access to an imagination that can create anything, right? This mind is so powerful. We can think any thought we want. We can think any idea we want. And knowing that beliefs are just thoughts that you think over and over and over, that means you can change your beliefs. You can freely change your beliefs whenever you feel like, at any time. You just have to think new thoughts, and with the power of your mind, right, you can freely choose the thoughts that you want to think. And you can freely keep choosing those thoughts over and over and over, which will allow you to have to effectively change your beliefs and then have new beliefs. And with these new beliefs, you'll be thinking differently, because you'll be operating from a new perspective. And since you're thinking differently, you'll begin vibrating different energy, ideally positive energy, right? If you're thinking good thoughts and happy thoughts and positive thoughts. And that happy energy is what's going to lead to you taking great action, which chances are is going to be different than the action that you were taking previously, which means you're going to create new results for yourself. That's how it works. So when I say your mind is a steering wheel, this is the reality of it. You want to have your hands on the steering wheel. You want to remain in control, because if you have your hands on the steering wheel, then you can determine which direction to drive the car and which direction you want to go. It's the same idea with your mind, right? Your mind will determine the direction that you take your life, because your mind is your loyal servant. Your mind simply accepts whatever instructions you give it. See, you have the power to freely accept or reject any idea that comes your way, right? You don't have to accept the ideas of other people if they're silly or negative. You don't have to accept the ideas of other corporations or other entities, right? You have the power to freely accept or reject because you are a logical being. You can do that. But whatever you decide to accept ends up being instructions that you give to your mind. And then your mind will simply act upon the instructions that you give it, right? Now, the reason why some people struggle is because they underestimate on the value or don't understand the true power of their mind, or because their mind ends up being so powerful and they don't have the hands on the steering wheel, they're not in control. A lot of negative thoughts and idea ends up creeping into their mind and ends up, because they ultimately accept it, and it ends up being instructions that get delivered to their mind. And so the mind unfortunately ends up being their worst enemy because it always goes against them, right? There's so many people that have been conditioned and programmed to think negatively. When we've all been come across people like that in our lives, where you can say anything, it can be anything, and then someone will have something bad to say, right? And sort of you begin thinking to yourself, do you even have anything good to say, right? Like, anytime anyone has an idea, they immediately shut it down. Like, they wake up with an attitude, they wake up angry and frustrated with the world, and then you can say anything, it could be any idea, whatever, and they'll shoot it down. Or they'll say, you can have a great idea, and they'll say, oh, but that'll never work, or that can't happen, or like they're quick and conditioned to automatically find ways or all the reasons why something can't work. But what you need to understand is that the law of opposites is a real thing, right? There can't be an up without a down. There can't be a hot without a cold. There can't be a left without a right. There can't be an indoor without an outdoors. So if someone can find every reason why something can't work out, why every reason why something is negative or a bad thing, then by law you can find the reasons why something is a good thing, and you can find reasons why things are going to work out, and you can find, right, like, you can be positive about it too. So it's the same idea with the mind, right? The mind is a loyal servant. Whatever instructions you give it, that is what it will work with. See, and you can see the power in the mind, but just working against other people too, because if your mind has been conditioned to always just think negatively, then how do you expect to get far in life? If you're always thinking about the negative of why things aren't going to work out, how is that serving you? It's not, but most people don't think about it that way. If you're here for one existence, you want to live the most fulfilling life, you want your mind to help you. If it's the most powerful tool that you've been given, if it's pretty much a supercomputer that can process so much information and help you, you want it to be on your side so that it can help you. So it can help you create the most happy, fulfilling, enjoyable life here, right? And yet most people have it end up being their own worst enemy. That's because of other people and other entities that are in control of their mind. That's someone that's taken their hand off the steering wheel of their vehicle and is allowing their vehicle to go wherever it is, right? It's a lot easier to get to where it is that you want to go in life if you're in control of the steering wheel and can determine which direction you want to go, right? It's a lot easier to get to where you're going. It's a lot of people who unfortunately are not in control. If you're not in control of your mind, then someone else is. Some other entity is, right? Then you're following the instructions of other people and other entities. And if that's the case, then you're not in control, which means you're not heading where you want to go, right? And that's why people unfortunately can end up living a life that they didn't design intentionally, because they've allowed other people and other things to be in control. You want to remain in control at all times. Your mind is the steering wheel of your life, because your mind determines the direction that you want to go. The mind listens to your instructions, and because of that, helps you travel to where you want to go. There's some people, the reality is that there's some people who are conditioned and programmed to be problem oriented, where when they experience a problem, they focus all their attention on that problem And so because of that, their mind is clouded with just the problem, and they're not able to think about the solution. We know many people like this, right? That there's people, for example, there's people who can be frustrated about, you know, not being in shape, and potentially having like health concerns, and yet these same people don't ever even lift a finger to change anything, even though they know what they should be doing, which is probably eating healthy or eating healthier, and probably exercising, right? And probably getting sleep, and probably, from time to time going outside and getting some sunlight, right? And walking through nature, right? Like, and meditating, right? Like, potentially even getting massages, right? To help reduce stress levels, right? Of course, if you want to improve your health, you want to begin feeling better. You want to reduce your stress. You want to be doing things that you enjoy. You want to be relaxing, right? And yet, most people, they know what they should be doing, and yet they don't do any of it because their mind is so fixated on the problem. And so the entire time, they're just so angry and frustrated and concerned about the problem, but they don't ever take a step back to look for the solution, right? That's what happens when someone does not have their hands on the steering wheel. That's what happens when someone's mind, when they're not in control of their mind and they're just allowing everything else to be in control, right? Because you have the power. See, what you understand about like problems that happen in life, no problem is ever bigger than you. You need to see yourself as being a giant, hundreds of feet tall, with your head in the cloud, and problems are simply the size of a snail, right? That's how they are, because you are you are so powerful that you can solve any problem. And a problem is merely just perspective, right? Because things aren't good or bad, they just are. So we're the ones that place these events in buckets, whether something is good or bad. Because something might be bad, something might be horrible, but it can very well end up being one of the biggest blessings that happen in your life. So if that's the case, was it really bad if it ends up working out in your favor? Probably not, right? It's just people tend to be short-sighted, and then they just judge things immediately. But this is what I mean with the power of the mind. It's like the mind can end up being your greatest tool, your greatest asset, or it can end up being something that's detrimental to you, right? So you want to make sure you are always protecting your mind. You want to make sure you have your hands on the steering wheel and that you're controlling your mind, right? Any idea that gets presented to you, you have the power to accept it or reject it. Most people are very impressionable, so they don't really feel like they ever have that choice. And so because of it, they end up accepting everything that comes into their mind. And as a result, their life ends up becoming, whatever is determined, dictated by the ideas of other people, right? I'll use another example. How many times in our lifetime have we heard from other people that the world is going to end, right? We've heard it so many times in our life, and yet we're at the point right now where everything's fine. Everything's good, right? We're all here. We all made it, right? And there were so many times where you hear it on the news or from other people that everything is crashing, that the apocalypse is happening, that the world is coming to an end. So now imagine if you were someone that believed that to be true. You would be living your whole life worried, anxious, concerned, fearful of the future, scared, rather than enjoying life and being at peace. And so you would spend all that time experiencing negative emotions and living your life as if that event actually happened, when it never did. When that entire time you spent worrying and being anxious and vibrating negative energy, you could have just been enjoying your life, right? That is the difference. That is the power of your mind, right? It can serve you and help you solve your problems and help guide you to where it is that you want to go, or it can end up being your worst enemy, or end up being destructive, because you allow these negative thoughts, these negative ideas, all these other faulty beliefs and opinions from other people hijack your mind. Remember, if you are not the one in control, then someone else is going to be, right? Because people, corporations, right, they understand that in today's age, attention is currency. And most people, fortunately, are not, they don't, it's almost like they're sleepwalking, right? That they just follow the crowd. They mindlessly follow the crowd. They do what everyone else is doing. They're not thinking critically. They're not thinking logically. That they're not thinking for themselves. You want to be someone that always thinks for themselves. You want to be someone that when you have a thought and idea that comes into your mind, if it's a silly or faulty idea, get rid of it, right? And think of a thought and idea that you want, something that is going to serve you, and you accept that. Have that be instruction that you give your mind, because your mind, once again, is the most powerful tool that we were given, so it can either serve you or hurt you. Most people are not in control, so they allow their mind to just end up being where it's at, right? You want it to always end up being in a position where it is serving you, so that you can end up creating the life that you want to live. So make sure, right, your mind is your steering wheel of your life. Like if you're driving the car, right, make sure your hands are on the steering wheel. Make sure you always remain in control of your mind, and you protect your mind, and insert the ideas and the beliefs, the thoughts that you want to have, right, to then create the belief that you want to have, the beliefs that make sense for you, the beliefs that are going to propel you forward to ultimately create the life that you want. You have to always be in control, right? And that's the power of your mind. So that wraps up the video. Enjoy the video, do leave a like and subscribe as we're on the road to a main subscriber, guys. So once again, it's Joel, and I'm out. I'll see you guys for the next video.